Okay, our next fabulous guest is Dave Warwak. Is that how you say it, my friend? I first heard about Dave Warwak when he was in trouble, right? Yeah, he was losing his job, and he was fighting with all his might because he believes so much in the vegan lifestyle and in cruelty-free living. And he is a meditator, as a lot of people here are, because we have to kind of fight off the effects of American culture. It's very stress-inducing, I would say, and we need to be powerful. We need to get our power back. We need to be strong, because we have big fights ahead of us. We have to fight the meat, quote unquote, industry. I don't like to use the word industry with what is it, corpse munchers? We have to really name it what it is. Corpse munchers, right? Come on. Okay, so he's a philosopher and humanitarian and artist, musician, poet, and writer. And formerly a tenured middle school art teacher, he became an animal rights activist after he was notoriously fired for teaching veganism to his students, and T. Colin Campbell came and testified for him, and that is huge. That's huge. I spoke with T. Colin Campbell personally, and he says, boy, you know, your Veggie Pride Parade, I can't go, I can't be there, I'm sorry about that, but I know that you have Dave Warwak there, and I like that guy. He said that to me. He did. Dave has been hanging out, hanging in there, and he's been fighting for veganism furiously. He believes in it as strongly as anybody, and he comes up from Florida, where he's living, and he's trying to hang in there, make it, and but he has a lot of powerful visions. He has not visions like visions, but he has a vision. And let's hear it straight from Dave Warwak himself. God bless. Here he is, Dave Warwak.
Gotta give it up to Pam too. She works really hard to get this off. Yeah, very cool. I don't know if I'll be able to separate that. Okay, it's great to be here. Thank you, and big thank you to Susan of Feather Suit Transportation for getting me here. I've been on the road for 4 months just to get up here from Florida. I was at mile marker 0 on Highway 1, the farthest southernmost point in the U.S. And you know, when I was down there, people are very ignorant, and they're not as progressive as they are in the cities. So getting up here has been helping my sanity, being around like minds, and it's really nice to see that people are actually intelligent and compassionate. So pat yourselves on their back if you're vegan, or if you're not, for even being curious enough. A lot of people don't have open minds, and they're not lifelong learners. It is funny that Pamela said corpse muncher, because I got a lot of flack for that when I came up with that for the first time. But I think meat eating is a soft term, you know. When you say someone's a meat eater, you don't cringe. But if you say they're a corpse muncher, your blood curdles, and you're like, what? But it's just factual language, and people get upset, and they say you're calling us names. And hey, if you're that upset about what we're saying, think of what you're doing and how we must feel. You're lucky I'm only talking about it, you know. If I behaved like you know, there'd be severe consequences. You know, since I got fired from teaching, I kind of think of public speaking and doing activism as my way to teach the world. So you're in my classroom right now, and I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And relearning the Pledge of Allegiance was really tough for me, because I'd said it every year in school growing up. And then as a teacher, I continued saying it. So I've been saying it my whole life. And I never even thought about what it meant or the implications of it. But really, it just enforces war and blind patriotism, and they're not really pledging to much other than this idea that they've concocted that there is some legitimate reason for war. There is no reason for war. There's no logical reason for it. And the thing that drives people to do it is this patriotism. So anyway, I made up my own Pledge of Allegiance, and if I mess up, it's because I've been indoctrinated. I've been saying it the other way for so long, but it goes like this. I pledge of allegiance to animals for the united sake of our humanity, and to the planet on which we stand, Earth, our one and only home, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Now that would be a cool pledge. You have children say that every day, you know, and you have them cross their heart, and you know they can look at out the window at the trees. Hopefully, there's some left, you know, or the blue sky. You know, it's funny because I've got 15 minutes up here, and I wonder, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? What could be valuable? And I've always been very upset about religion and it's the things that they do, and they say that vegans are religious or it's some kind of cult, you know, and they don't understand. And they accuse me of preaching. You know, all of a sudden I'm a preacher. I didn't know that. Pretty cool. So if you're going to call me something, at least give me the satisfaction of doing it. So I thought it'd be cool to preach for a while. You know, and you know, anything I say is just a fact. It's just an indisputable truth, like thou shalt not kill, right? Isn't that the big religious tenet that's universal across all religions throughout time? Thou shalt not kill. And what's the other one? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. There's no disclaimers in it, you know, where it says do unto humans as you would have humans do unto you. It's just others. Animals are others. They're beings. They're special beings. You know, we should be blessed with their presence and appreciate them. So you know, and if I'm going to be a preacher, I got to talk about Jesus. They always talk about Jesus, and they say, hey, you know, Jesus ate fish. I got indisputable proof that that's bull. It's bullshit. I'm going to say it. I get 15 minutes up here. I'm going to say bullshit. I got proof. All right. I was a fishing guide for some 25, 30 years, and I've caught fish. I was the Hitler in the fish world, boy. I caught so many and killed so many, and I didn't know they feel pain because my dad lied to me. He didn't know it was a lie, but he said fish don't feel pain when I was a little kid. And so after growing up and doing this for so long and examining myself, I said, wait a minute. When I cut the fish with the knife and they're bleeding and the eyes looking up at me and they're quivering in the tail, and you're telling me these things don't feel pain? Wait a minute, I've been lied to. So I changed and I went vegan, and I'm that aware, and all of us are that aware. We don't eat fish, we don't eat chicken, you know, we don't eat any animals, you know, and so if I'm smart enough and compassionate enough to stop eating fish and to give up my fishing guide business, does that mean that I am smarter than Jesus? That I am more compassionate than Jesus? Dave Warwak is better than Jesus? No way. So there's proof. Jesus didn't eat fish, because no way am I smarter and more compassionate than Jesus. All right? You can't argue that. That's an indisputable truth. And another thing, you know, when they say he died for our sins, he didn't die for our sins so we can continue sinning because he died for us. No, they twist it. He didn't die. He was murdered. And it wasn't for our sins, it was because we were sinful people. Jesus was murdered because people are sinful. And he was trying to make a point, trying to get us to stop being sinful, not to continue in his name. What a travesty. And yet people don't think about these things, and they say them to you, and you just look at them. And this is what I experienced traveling up from Florida through Carolina and, you know, Virginia. These people, they really think that there's this guy floating around on a cloud looking down on us, you know, and he knows everything we do. I mean, it's insanity, you know, that you run into this stuff. And their biggest lie about Jesus was the pivotal act that led to his crucifixion. That was the reason he died. He went to the church to make a point about what was going on in the basement. There was animal slaughter going on. It was right during the time of Passover, and they didn't have refrigeration. So people would Mecca to the temple of Herod, and they'd gather around. They'd have neighboring priests and rabbis come from all over, because they were killing around the clock to provide meat for people for this big ceremony. So they had a slaughterhouse in the basement. And then you read their version of it, and they call it the story of the money changers, where he stormed into church and he released a dove on the table. Right there, he's an animal rights activist, if that was the very first thing he did. And then he flipped over the table and he said, "How dare you turn my father's house into a den of robbers?" Now, he wasn't referring to money, he was referring to the den in the basement, the robbers of life, his father's house. You know, that's why he was killed. But you'll never hear that story in church. You'll never hear it. And it's provable. They've done archaeological digs at this temple of Herod, and they found in the basement thousands and thousands of animal bones and crude cutting tools. And they found an altar where the priests and the rabbis would take the bucket of blood and splatter it on the altar in the name of God. That doesn't sound like any religion I'd like to be a part of, where there's, you know, knifing creatures and there's crying and screaming and blood and mess and then all the killing and blood thrown around. That doesn't sound like heaven going on in the bottom of the church. And so Jesus knew he would get killed if he said anything about what was going on, but he did it anyway. He gave up his life to make a point about eating animals and how wrong it is, and how, especially to do it in the name of God. But yet they'll say that too. They'll say, well, that's why he put them here, for us to eat. How convenient for us. I mean, you know, did you consult with the animals when you came up with that reason? And they're like, oh yeah, we're cool with it. You know, go ahead. You know, so they do it. It's just insanity. And they start drilling us with this information ever since we're a little kid. Before we even have time to think about it, they're giving us Gerber baby food with liver in it, and you know, and lamb meal and stuff. They're getting you ready for it. And then your parents are so proud when you can finally get teeth in and you start chewing, and they applaud you, and you know, and they say, you know, if you don't eat your meat, you're not going to get any pudding. You know, and none of us liked it when we were little. We hated it. You know, we didn't want to eat it. It felt funny. It wasn't much flavor. It was like tough, and you felt like you were going to choke on it. You didn't know why it was so important that you had to eat it. And they say, well, you need your protein. You know, where are you going to get your protein? You know, I've been vegan for 5 or 6 years, and I get all the protein I need. I mean, I'm muscular. I got no problems. You look at the gorilla, you know, in nature. They got huge chests, massive shoulders, and these big arms, and they could tear you apart if they wanted to, but they don't mess with us. But you look at them, and they eat leaves and fruit. That's all they eat. You know, you look at cows, all they eat is grass. They're strong. You know, all the largest animals, the elephants, where do they get their protein? How come they're not just withering away and dropping dead? And where are all these protein deficient people? I mean, it's insanity. If you get enough calories through plant-based things, you know, 2,000 calories if that's your requirement, you're going to get all the protein you need by the time you get 2,000 calories. They've had scientists that tried to devise diets that were deficient in protein but sufficient in calories, only using plant-based things. They couldn't do it. So that is a flat-out lie, and there's no doctors that treat people for protein deficiencies, but yet you've got even doctors, they're so stupid that they'll say, well, you know, you might need a shot of B12 and this and that, you know, and they're pumping people full of medicine. They even got vegans believing it, going off for B12 shots. You know, just because someone's got a piece of paper behind their head, you know, in their desk, they have a doctorate, doesn't mean that they are the end-all of truth or know what the hell they're doing in the first place. All it means is that they paid a lot of money for a bunch of information that really is of no use, and they learned how to jump through hoops over 10, 12 years, and they become kiss asses and do whatever they could to get their degree, and then by the time they get their degree, they're so happy they finally want to get out and make money. They're not lifelong learners. When they get home from work, they stuff their faces with meat, you know, and drink dairy and ice cream, and who knows what they do, you know, when they get home, but it's not on the computer finding out, you know, current information. And so they're in the dark. And these doctors, they only are required to take 1 to 3 credit hour class on nutrition in their whole 10 years of schooling. 1 class. And in that 1 class, they feed the doctors bullshit. They say, yeah, there's food groups, and you need your meat, and you need your milk, and you need your cheese for, you know, you got to get your calcium. And this whole dairy thing with osteoporosis, they're telling people to drink more. That's what's giving you osteoporosis, is drinking all that milk. You know, they're leaching the calcium out of the bones of the cows where they can't even stand by the time they rush them off to slaughter after 4 years. They're no use. and then we drink that milk from them that is exhausted of calcium because they can't walk, you know, and then they wonder why, and they're searching for a cure for cancer. You know, like there's some pill that'll enable you to eat meat and drink milk. There is no magic pill. There never will be. It's insanity, and then the truth is right in front of them, and it's the information age, and they take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, and yet that's all they do is harm. People are checking into hospitals and they're not checking out because of these weird staph infections. And you say, well, what's the staph infection from? Sure enough, it's from animals. You know, we ingest all the antibiotics as we're eating the meat, and then we become immune to it. And then by the time they try and give it to us at the hospital, it doesn't work for us. The drug companies make more money on animal agriculture than they do on treating humans. So they got us coming and going. All right, I'm getting the slash signal. I have to stress this before I get off the stage because this is the solution to the problem. Honest with children, humane education. They are the future and they get it. And it's not a miserable experience getting a child to go vegan like it is getting an adult to go vegan. You'll have fun doing it. So they're the future. All right, rock on. Thank you.
Where's your brother?